Good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Just a note that Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council meetings can take place in person as long as physical distancing of 2 meters can be maintained between participants. At this time, according to Alberta Health, public attendance at Council meetings should be facilitated through virtual means. If you've submitted a comment request, the Chair will call on you at the appropriate time. The Chair may also ask for comments and concerns from the public relating to a particular topic, and at this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you would like to speak, please state your name. We ask that only one member of the public speaks at a time. All persons will be allotted 10 minutes to speak, as per our procedural bylaw. We ask that if the meeting recesses, that any callers hang up and call back in as the meeting reconvenes. This helps with call quality. Please note this call is being recorded and will be uploaded to our website and/or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. Everyone has a right to be present at Council meetings and Council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the Chair as per the Municipal Government Act, Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. We'll start with a roll call just because we have a mix of in-person and conference call. Reeve Link is here. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
I'm here.
Councillor Wilson.
Here.
Councillor Bigger. Here. Councillor Eichert.
Here.
Councillor Kester.
Present.
And Councillor Armstrong. Additionally, our voting procedure will be modified for our teleconference meeting. I will call for any councillor who is opposed to a motion to indicate verbally. For any motions with expressed opposition, we will conduct a roll call vote. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes? A motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Wilson has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. The minutes from our regular council meeting of June 16th were circulated as part of the package. Did anybody see any errors or omissions? If not, a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved. Councillor Armstrong.
Councillor Armstrong has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll now move to our public hearings, 2.11. I move that the process for the Wheatland County Council meeting, as it pertains to the scheduled public hearings, will be as follows. Public hearing, first reading if required, then consideration for further readings of bylaw for those public hearings that have been closed. I further move that the above process will take place with the absence of resolution to go into and out of council before and after each council hearing. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. I'll call the public hearing to order for bylaw 2020-19. Welcome, everybody. Does any member of the public have an objection to any councillor sitting on council for the public hearing? And can administration verify that notice of the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
We can verify that, yes.
Thank you. And were there any written submissions?
There have been no written submissions.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, council members. I'm here introducing the application for Land Use 2020-09, which is bylaw 2020-19, to redesignate 130 acres of Northeast 7, 2221 west of the 4th at the intersection of Highway 1 and Range Road 215 from from agricultural general district to rural business district. This will accommodate an existing wedding venue use while allowing owners to continue to farm the land. Internal and external agencies, as well as landowners within 1 mile of the application, have been circulated, and no objections have been received. So if we could just scroll down to the first map here. So for those at home, we are on we just scroll up for the page number. On page 15 of your agendas. The site is mostly agricultural land with a wedding venue at the southern end, if we can go to page 16 of the agenda, and an access on the northeast side of the parcel. A development permit for a wedding venue was originally issued in 2017 and has expired in 2019. The applicants will need to acquire a new development permit if this proposed redesignation is approved. After review, this application is in alignment with the policies outlined in the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, the Municipal Development Plan, and the Regional Growth Management Strategy. The intent of the Rural Business District is to accommodate the operation of businesses of a rural nature within the county while maintaining the agricultural land base. The land use bylaw defines wedding venues as an entertainment venue, which are listed as a discretionary use in the Rural Business District. The majority of this parcel will remain as an agricultural operation, which is a permitted use within the Rural Business District. So staff recommends that council move second and third reading of bylaw 2020-19 to redesignate Northeast 7, 22, 21 west of the 4th from agricultural general to Rural Business District. That concludes this presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to speak? Or any persons in support of the application? Any persons with concerns or opposed to the application? Any final comments from staff?
No final comments.
Are you looking at the agenda?
With that, we will close the public hearing for bylaw 2020-19. Council can consider further readings.
I'll move second reading.
Council discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll move third reading for 2020-19.
Council discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to the public hearing for bylaw 2020-20. Does any member of the public have an objection to any councillor sitting on council for the public hearing? And can administration verify that the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
Administration can confirm that, yes.
Thank you, Megan. And are there any written submissions?
We received none.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So Megan Williams here to present application LU 2020-10, bylaw 2020-20, found on page 19 of your council package. The subject parcel is 40 acres in size and is located approximately 1 3/4 kilometers northeast of Cheadle. It is south of Highway 1 and Range Road 263 intersection. The location plan is found on page 24 of your council package. The application is to redesignate 40 acres of the subject parcel from agricultural general to industrial general in order to facilitate a multi-lot subdivision. Staff didn't receive any comments from adjacent landowners, and external agency circulation only resulted in a request for a traffic impact assessment from Alberta Transportation. So the TIA will be requested at the next stage of development. The aerial imagery is on page 26 of the council package, and the most recent tentative plan provided is on page 27. This version of the proposed shows a phased development where each phase will be subdivided into 8 one-acre parcels. However, the landowner is waiting for the land use redesignation process to be complete prior to making a decision on the direction of the subdivision, the subdivision will take. On the northern portion of the parcel, there's a wetland. So when a subdivision application is submitted that potentially impacts that wetland, a wetland assessment and impact report will need to be completed. There's also a potential for stormwater management issues if a multi-lot subdivision were to proceed without a plan in place. For this reason, a current and proposed drainage plan will be required with the area concept plan, if the ACP is required, and a stormwater management plan will be required at the subdivision stage. Having a proposed drainage plan will guide the stormwater management plans for the upcoming subdivisions if those subdivisions are phased. So the proposed redesignation does align with the relevant policies, objectives, and guidelines within the SSRP or South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, Regional Growth Management Strategy, Municipal Development Plan, and West Highway 1 Area Structure Plan. The next stage of development will still be required to align with these policies, objectives, and guidelines. The West Highway 1 Area Structure Plan recommends an area concept plan be submitted with or when a subdivision of more than 6 lots is proposed. For this particular development, this is the route staff is recommending. The ACP will require a traffic impact assessment, a current and proposed drainage plan, as well as sections that address the wetland and water and wastewater strategies. The purpose of the ACP is to guide future subdivisions and development applications to ensure cohesive development. So administration is recommending that council open the public hearing for bylaw 2020-20 and grant second and third reading. Administration's full recommendation can be found on page 19. I'll just scooch up there real quick. So the second resolution that council moves second reading of bylaw 2020-20 to redesignate 40 acres of Southeast 9, 24, 26 west of the 4th from agricultural general district to industrial general. And staff is also recommending that council move third reading. Council has 3 options before them. They can approve the recommendations, not approve them, or approve an alternate. That does conclude my presentation. I'm available for questions. I did speak to the applicant yesterday, and they hope to be on the line and available for council if there were any specific questions regarding the proposed development. Thank you so much.
Good morning, it's Michael Knudsen and Barry Sullivan at Cumberland Sullivan Architecture Studio regarding this application. We're here for any questions.
Good morning, thank you. Do you wish to speak to the application at all?
No, I don't believe that there's any additional information we can provide to this for now. We'll, of course, speak to any future developments as necessary.
Thank you. Are there any persons who would like to speak in support of the application? Any persons with concerns or who are opposed to the application? Are there any questions from council? Any final comments from staff?
No final comments.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the public hearing for bylaw 2020-20. Council's wishes.
I'll move second reading.
Councillor Eichert has moved second reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
Third reading.
Scott here, I'll move third reading.
I think Councillor Armstrong beat you to it. Councillor Armstrong has moved third reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll open the public hearing for bylaw 2020-23. Does any member of the public have an objection to any councillor sitting on council for the public hearing?
That's it.
I'm not sure, somebody just spoke, but we couldn't decipher what you were saying. And can administration verify that the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
We can, yeah.
Thank you. And are there any written submissions?
There have been no written submissions.
Thank you.
Good morning again, council members. This is Graham Allison speaking again. I'm introducing the public hearing and second and third reading for Land Use 2020-13, which is bylaw 2020-23, to redesignate 62.53 acres within Northeast 232517 west of the 4th, from Agricultural General District to Natural Resource Extraction District, to facilitate the construction of a municipal gravel pit for the county's Public Works Department. Internal and external agencies and landowners within 2 miles of the subject site were circulated about this application, and no objections have been received. If we can scroll down to the location map, please. So we're now on the location plan on page 33 of your council agenda. The subject lands were subdivided from a parent parcel in 2019. There's currently no road access to the parcel. Transportation and Agricultural Services have submitted plans to construct a road to access the parcel along the right-of-way on the north side of the site. A tentative plan, reclamation plan, and haul route have been submitted by the Transportation and Agricultural Services Department. The requirement of submission of a drainage study and environmental study have been deferred until the development permit stage, as Transportation and Ag Services do not expect to apply for a development permit in the near future. If we can now scroll down to page 34. After review, this application is in alignment with the policies outlined in the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, the Municipal Development Plan, and the Regional Growth Management Strategy. The proposed natural resource extraction will be larger than 12 acres, and as a result, the applicant is required to obtain a code of practice for gravel pits through Alberta Environment and Parks. Typically, code of practice is issued at the development permit stage, either with the application or as a condition of the development permit. After review, staff recommends that council open the public hearing and move second and third reading of bylaw 2020-23 to redesignate 62.53 acres of northeast 232517 west of the 4th from Agricultural General District to Natural Resource Extraction District. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to speak? Any persons in support of the application who would like to speak?
I don't, Council. Available for questions if you have any, though.
Perfect, thank you. Any persons with concerns or who are opposed to the application? Any questions from council? Any final comments from staff?
No final comments from staff, thanks.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing for bylaw 2020-23. Council's wishes.
I'll move second reading. Glenn.
Councillor Kester has moved second reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll move third reading.
Councillor Armstrong has moved third reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.14, bylaw 2020-26.
Good morning again, Council. This is Megan Williams here to present bylaw 2020-26. This bylaw is on page 38 of the Council package. So the proposed bylaw will update multiple land use districts, specific land use regulations, and definitions regarding cannabis production facilities and cannabis cultivation. The proposed amendment will impact the entire county. So staff circulated the application internally and received no concerns with the proposed amendments. External agencies will be circulated after first reading. Staff just wanted to ensure that they had captured all of the amendments council had requested. So staff researched the surrounding municipalities and reached out to a couple of developers who had previously obtained a development permit for a cannabis production facility and to a developer who had expressed interest in obtaining one in order to learn what the current trends are in cannabis production facilities and to learn what difficulties the developers had faced. Based on this, staff is proposing the following changes through bylaw 2020-26. A new use, cannabis cultivation, which means the use of land, buildings, or structures for the purpose of growing cannabis under authorization by license pursuant to the cannabis regulations. This use is proposed as discretionary in agricultural general and rural business district and as permitted in the industrial and general district. Staff is also proposing removing the restriction that cannabis production facilities locate within the West Highway 1 area structure plan. None of the municipalities contacted have a geographical restriction and have had few complaints once the facilities were constructed. They attribute this to the low population density around these facilities. Staff is also proposing to decrease the setback requirements for cannabis production facilities to 150 meters or 492 feet from a parcel used for a school, child care facility, day home, or similar use. Originally, the setback was 500 meters or 1,640 feet. The second proposed setback amendment is to the setback from a dwelling. Though it is remaining at 100 meters or 328 feet, staff is proposing the setback be measured from the boundary of the development rather than the property line. This will allow landowners to construct a cannabis cultivation facility on their agriculturally zoned parcels without needing to subdivide. It will also be easier to meet setbacks in the industrial areas in the county. Page 45 and 46 contain a summary of the changes made to Section 8.3 of the Land Use Bylaw in order to clarify the proposed changes. So the proposal generally supports the relevant strategies, objectives, and policies within the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, Regional Growth Management Strategy, Municipal Development Plan, and cannabis regulations. They support the economic guidelines by diversifying the industrial and agricultural economy. Administration is recommending that Council grant first reading to Bylaw 2020-26, and the recommendations are found on page 38 of the Council package. Administration is recommending that first reading be granted and that a public hearing for the bylaw be scheduled for September 1st, 2020 at 9 a.m. in the Wheatland County Council chambers. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Council's wishes.
I'll move first reading. Sorry.
Who's that?
Councillor Armstrong's quick this morning. Councillor Armstrong has moved first reading. Any discussion?
I've got a question for administration on 8.31. Shall not be within 100 meters. What is the, what would, if I were to build a greenhouse and I was going to grow roses in that, is there a setback, like to have a commercial flower factory, would there be a setback on that? Is it the same amount of distance for a greenhouse as it is for a cannabis operation?
No, let me just double check. So there are normal setbacks between buildings, but
those are questions more for the public hearing though, so that everybody gets a chance to comment on it. We're just dealing with first reading here.
Okay, so we can make all sorts of changes, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Otherwise, we
thank you, Councillor Armstrong. I'm good.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the floor for first reading. Any other discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. A motion to schedule the public hearing.
I'll move that a public hearing be held, scheduled for September 1st, 2020 at 9 a.m. In county chambers, pursuant to the Government Act.
Councillor Eckert has moved to schedule the public hearing. Any discussion?
Yeah, through the Reeve, Matt from administration, yeah, we are, and we are currently in the process of scheduling one in your division, Councillor Hassar. So we're going to use that model as a contingency to get prepared, and obviously we field comments well ahead of time and up to, so we'll be able to make a determination on how to proceed.
Good question. Any other questions? Is any councillor opposed? It's possible. Hearing none, the motion is carried. We'll move to 2.1.5, bylaw 2020-28.
Good morning again, council members. This is Graham Allison again. This application is for bylaw 2020-28, which is land use bylaw amendments batch 3. This application will implement textual changes to Wheatland County's land use bylaw. Proposed land use bylaw amendments are recommended to clarify definitions, remove contradicting uses or provisions, and to correct minor errors, clarify wording or language in the purpose and intent in several land use districts. Amendments are proposed to the following sections of the land use bylaw. Part 2, definitions. Textual amendments to the following definitions: dwelling accessory, dwelling duplex, dwelling fourplex, dwelling manufactured, dwelling modular, dwelling moved on, dwelling multi-unit, dwelling primary, dwelling secondary suite, dwelling semi-detached, dwelling single detached, dwelling temporary, dwelling townhouse. There are also proposed amendments to the following definitions: equestrian center, greenhouse private, greenhouse public, gross floor area, home-based business type 2 and home-based business type 3, and lot coverage. Proposed amendments include new definitions for the following: impervious surface, garden center, dwelling, relocatable industrial accommodation, and proposed amendments to remove the following definition: nursery. There are proposed changes to Part 7, general regulations, specifically to Section 7.18.5, prohibited signage. Specific use regulations, changes are being proposed to the following: Section 8.8, dwelling accessory; Section 8.11, dwelling moved on; Section 8.13, dwelling temporary. And additional changes being proposed to the following uses: Section 8.4, home-based business, to require a site plan for home-based business 2, and applications, and for a home-based business 2 to operate within an accessory building structure. And Section 8.16, shipping containers, to allow shipping containers within industrial general districts to be stacked 4 in height, increased from 2. And proposed changes to the following land use districts: Section 9.1, agricultural general district, to move HBB2 from a discretionary to a permitted use, and to Section 9.5, industrial general, to update the purpose and intent to align with the district regulations. So after initial review, this application is in alignment with the general policies outlined in the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, the Municipal Development Plan, and the Regional Growth Management Strategy. Internal and external agencies have been circulated, and notice of this first reading and public hearing have been posted on the Wheatland County website. No objections or comments have been received so far. So after review, staff is recommending the council move first reading, and these resolutions can be found on page 47. To schedule a public hearing for August 18th, 2020 at 9 a.m.
That concludes this presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Council's wishes. Just a reminder to everybody to make sure your mics are on and that we're speaking into them, just for clarity for the callers. Council's wishes.
I'll move first reading.
Councillor Armstrong has moved first reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll move public hearing for bylaw 2020-28 be scheduled for August 18th, 2020 at 9 a.m. at the Wheatland County Council Chambers.
Councillor Wilson has moved to schedule the public hearing. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to bylaw 2020-27.
Excuse me, Reeve Link, can you just verify who moved the last motion?
Wilson.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you.
Good morning, Reeve Link and Council. My name is Matthew Kursiba, Manager of Financial Services. I'm here to present the second and third reading of borrowing bylaw 2020-27. This can be found on page 66 of the agenda. After first reading, we are required by MGA Section 606 to advertise the borrowing bylaw for 2 consecutive weeks. The borrowing bylaw was advertised in the June 12th and June 19th editions of the Strathmore Times, as well as being posted on the county website. There were no calls, emails, or noted concerns from residents related to borrowing bylaw 2020-27. Thank you.
Thank you. Council's wishes.
I'll move second reading.
Councillor Wilson has moved second reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll move third reading. Brian?
Councillor Kester has moved third reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. I don't believe we have any unfinished business or business arising. We'll move to 3.1, Reeves' report. The report was included in your package. Just a couple of, I guess, things to note of significance. The Calgary Metropolitan Region Board did hold another workshop. We had the draft scenarios presented, which are business as usual, compact and transit-oriented development. There was some preliminary analysis of those and just some questions and answers that the board and committee members engaged in. We had a really good WC Infinite Possibilities call with Todd Hirsch. He's the Vice President and Chief Economist for ATB Financial. He had some really interesting kind of perspectives on COVID and potential outcomes from that. Another thing to note with the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board is the board did approve to request an extension. A letter went to Municipal Affairs asking for a 4-month extension to April 30th to complete the growth plan. It's mainly due to public health measures and how they're impacting public engagement. There was also a motion to approve sending those transportation studies to the Minister of Transportation and requesting consideration for stimulus funding for those projects as they were prioritized in the amalgamation of those reports. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll move that my report be accepted as presented. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. I also just included the Community Futures Wild Rose performance results for 2019 -20. Just outlines sort of a year in review for Community Futures. I'll move that we accept those as information. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.2, Deputy Reeves' report.
Hi, can I have that, just do it at the end if you would? Let everybody else go first, please.
Sure. Is
Thanks.
council fine with that?
Yep.
I'm not seeing anybody who disagrees. We'll move to 3.3, Division 1 report.
Yeah, so, once again, I only had one meeting, Handy Bus, which was on the 22nd, I believe, I'll double check. And, we are phasing back into our business plan, and the big decision that we made was to have cost recovery added on for the PPE and the extra cleaning recommendations from AHS, because we have to clean after every client and change PPE every client. So that's a $10 added fee, which was the board was very divided on, but we voted in favor of that, and I know there is some issues with the town of Strathmore and that decision, so we will see where that goes. And we have strategic planning coming up next Monday to decide which way the service goes itself, whether it's going to become more of a private enterprise business, hopefully, or carry on with the very high expenses due to the municipality's control over it. So,
Any questions?
other than that, I have nothing to add. I've shown up to every council meeting with you guys, so you know the go-to there. So I will move my report as read.
Any questions? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.4, Division 3 Councillor report.
Yes, I've included my report in the package. So, Chamber of Commerce, they had fireworks, Canada Day, but it was actually ended up being the day after. Very successful. Also working on Fun Runners. It's a car club to go through Strathmore and Wheatland County. We're just in the planning stages of that. That would be end of August, beginning of September. There's some courses starting for businesses on customer service it's a series for September, October, and November. I'll be heading that up to Canadian Badlands. There's tourism has taken a fairly big hit this year, so we've taken this time to realign Canadian Badlands. So, if there's any questions, free to answer any.
Well, don't worry, Donna. Alberta tourism doesn't matter. They'll give money to Maritimes and Quebec anyway.
Yeah.
God bless Canada.
If there's no questions, I'll approve my report as presented.
Any questions? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Division 4 Councillor report.
My report is before you on the agenda. Nothing special. I think it's all been covered. So with that, I'll move my report.
Any questions? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I would like to bring up at this time. Giving it a lot of thought with the COVID and how hard it's been hitting businesses, and because I've been in the city a little while, I'm talking about there may or may not be, with this shovel-ready work, we may, the county may be thinking about replacing some broken sidewalks in the hamlets. And I strongly believe that our local contractors should be on the preferred bid list. Having said that, because I've been working in the city of Calgary, I've been watching the city of Calgary do their stuff, and they're excavating, they tear out the sidewalk, they put a barricade on either side, put tape across each end of it, and some of them have now sat for a month and a half because of the weather and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty, it's pretty straightforward. All I'm talking about is the sidewalk replacements, like in the hamlets. And so I would really like council to think about allowing, because of what, and I know administration's against this, but because of the quote unquote the insurance risk and all that kind of stuff, they want to use core licensed installers to do this work. And a lot of times these core licensed installers will actually hire local contractors to do the work once they've got the contract. But our guys are not, like our ratepayers that are in the business are not allowed to bid on this. And it's straightforward stuff. You take out this chunk of sidewalk needs to be done, put the new sidewalk back in. Everybody knows what a good sidewalk looks like. It's not like there's anything hidden and all that kind of stuff. So I would like to put a motion on the floor that local contractors be preferred bidders on the sidewalk replacements work to be done in the hamlets. So
You're making a motion?
that would be my motion.
Is that specific enough, saying they don't need certain levels?
Well, I assume that if they have WCB and whatever level of liability that the county wants, like whether it be $2 million liability or $5 million liability, I mean, there are going to be, I mean, the only downside I can see, the risk that we are taking as council allowing us to, is there's going to be an open 6-inch deep excavation, and they would be barricaded, like they'd be taped off. I mean, you don't do anything fancy for it, like the cities don't do anything fancy for it, so I don't think we'd have to do anything. And it's more than, I mean, they pour sidewalks, these local contractors, they pour your driveways, they pour your sidewalks. They should be allowed to, if they live and work in the area, they should be allowed to bid on the work in the area. And like I said, I only want it to be in the hamlets and replacement work only, so we don't have to worry about that. But I think it gives them an opportunity. Like I said, there may not be any work. We may not get the money for that kind of shovel-ready work because that was pulled off of our budgets. But if it is, I just would love to see to work local.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I have one question, though. I don't know whether it's to staff or who it's to, but I've often wondered, and I've mentioned it here before, in our hamlets, because we don't control the towns or the villages, but in our hamlets, in the business center where there's a little store and post office or whatever, I don't have a problem with sidewalks, but I don't see why we put sidewalks in the residential. And if they're breaking up and cracking up, why don't we investigate looking at that, taking that out and greening that area rather than putting sidewalks in it? To me, I look around and I know the one I watch mostly in Hazard in the town and all the stuff they've gone to put in new sidewalks, and the people don't use them. People, the residents have trees hanging over them, and it slaps them, and so they walk in the middle of in the street when they're out walking. They don't walk on the sidewalks anyways. And then 6-8 years down the road, you got to go in there and fix them again. So I think staff should look at outside of the commercial sites in the residential areas to look at tearing that all out, and as they become dangerous or whatever you want to call it, and putting it back to green as a boulevard.
Sorry, Donna here. I kind of, it depends on the population. I think Carsland's been used, like, the sidewalks are used a lot. We have a school there.
But that's in, I'm not saying all of it, but just in totally the residential area.
Yeah, even the residential area, that's where the school is. Like, I think we need the sidewalks in Carsland.
But the school is not residential, it's not zoned residential.
No, but it's right beside, like, all the residents have to walk to the school.
The families use the residential
The families,
side.
and the sidewalks are used a lot in Carsland. In Speargrass, we don't have sidewalks, but we did put in a walking path. But in Carsland, I really think, I would not agree with it for Carsland.
But I think
it's necessary.
and I'm not looking at Carsland, I'm not saying anything about it, I'm just saying that when they bring these proposals in for sidewalk maintenance and repair work, that be one of our one of our look-ats. That they look at that and see, does it make sense to put a full sidewalk in there? Does it make sense to do something else? And we haven't been doing that.
Okay.
That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, I fully agree with Ben. Before actually throwing the money at it, just do a evaluation if it's needed or not. Because there are a lot of, I'm thinking of Gleason, just because, I mean, I grew up with grandparents in there and we didn't ever use a sidewalk. And Clooney's no different.
If I could, through the chair, if I could speak to that a little bit. So it's funny that that's coming up because we did look at this as we were looking at removing the sidewalk from the tender this year, or from the budget. So basically, the Parks Department, Dave and Matt's team there, and the Utilities Department have gone through the necessity for some of these sidewalks. They're doing a bit of a walkability study, and we're using Rosebud as a test case right now. Looking at, you're right, do we need sidewalks where we have them proposed? Repair is a little bit different, especially if somebody's accustomed to a sidewalk in front of their place, depending on if it's being used. The idea is that we put forward a plan for each community and then have some community feedback on that, and then also present it to council for the response on that. To speak to Councillor Eichert's discussion about local contractors, we are actually doing one segment of sidewalk. It's our only sidewalk project this year in Carsland for repair that we had intended, and we are looking at using local for that. We're going away from our core requirement. WCB, we're going to make sure they have insurance, obviously, but we are going to attempt to try local, and bring some of the, it's a good test case, really, to see what the response is on that for one, and then the product that we get at the end. So.
The Rangers screw off for a week, just a week, that's all I need.
So my own,
Will this get the hay wet?
Oh.
my only question to administration, and that's good to know that we're doing a pilot with that one project. My only question was just being cognizant of liability and how not having that core certification, if that has any impacts on our insurance after or anything like that.
Right, and definitely for larger projects, we're going to look at that. We have a legal opinion already that recommends not going this route, which is why we've forwarded on, and that was our official stance. But we do want to, with these smaller projects, we hire local contractors for smaller projects all the time that don't have core. They revert back to our safety plan and that sort of thing. So I think we're safe on a smaller project like that. We'll reevaluate it after this year and see if it's worthwhile to go to a larger one.
Do you remember your exact motion? Or Margaret, do you have the motion that's on the floor?
I have Councillor Eichert move that local contractors be the preferred bidders on sidewalk replacement projects within the hamlets.
Thank you. My personal preference, and I don't know if Councillor Eichert might be willing to consider it, would be and I realize we have a motion on the floor, but to defer the examination of this until we could hear back from administration on this pilot. But you're talking for stimulus funding, I guess.
And I have no problem. I had no idea that there was a pilot project going on. And, all I want to do is see how much local work we can get locally. So, yeah, I've got no problem. I can defer this until after we get, we hear back
how it went.
from the Carsland pilot. Not a problem.
I guess you would need to rescind your motion.
I can just note that it was withdrawn.
I probably should can I withdraw it until after we ascertain the Carsland pilot? Is that, I'm not gonna let this lie.
Yeah, you could defer until a report's available.
Or you just don't say until.
Or just withdraw and
don't
bring
say
it back
anything.
when administration brings their report.
Just actually, so that it's on the books, just put on there that you'll defer the discussion until after the pilot project is completed.
Yeah,
Then it has to come back.
that's a good
You
idea.
just have to address the motion on the floor to either,
So you defer it until the pilot project is done then.
So I'll defer my motion until the pilot project in Carsland, and at that time, we'll have the discussion.
Good enough. And just a comment, I'm glad we're looking into it. I think it's our job as a council to weigh the risks and our liability to give the local entrepreneurs a hand up. I mean, if we're willing to take on a little extra liability, which isn't a huge risk, I think it's worth it, so, no matter what legal says.
So we don't have deferring as an option, so
It should be.
we can withdraw, postpone to a certain time or date,
Deferring a motion
refer, amend, postpone indefinitely, reconsider,
Not deferring the motion,
rescind.
just defer the discussion.
So then we would need to withdraw the motion,
yeah, the way.
unless we know a certain date or time.
Yeah.
We would know by October.
From administration.
Then it would be
Maybe a good idea.
withdraw the motion and defer any discussion on this until after the.
Sorry, Brian, I missed what you said.
Yeah, just Brian from administration. What we could do is, we could withdraw that motion, and then what I could do is I could add, for this discussion to be brought back at a future date on the council resolution tracker, just so it doesn't get lost. And it's kind of like on a report every meeting, just to make sure we do follow up for council, for future discussion. Because kind of my thought is that they're undertaking a repair, and until, the 2021 budget, unless we do receive stimulus funding, we probably won't have a replacement in the county. Just a thought for council to consider. Thank you.
What's your preference, Councillor Eichert? What's your motion?
This is difficult. I will withdraw my motion, but I will request that it be brought forward at a later date after the Carsland project has been completed.
So you could move like for administration to report back on that pilot, and then that could trigger your
Right.
bringing this
Move
back.
that council, or that administration bring a report upon completion of the Carsland sidewalk replacement pilot project.
Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to Division 6 Councillor report.
Oh, God, we're not through the report. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got, it's on your agenda packages. we're heavily involved lately in, going through RFPs for an architect for the lodge to get the goal is to get schematic drawings which are needed to have a shovel-ready project. And we have received 20 applications, and I would say over half, I wouldn't have a problem with any one of them. They're very, very good, making the job of going through them very long. But we're having personal interviews, I believe, on the 20th. We've got that booked, so we got it weeded down to 3. And maybe next month when we're doing a report, we can have an architect on file. And one other note too, I think it's worth mentioning. The Lodge Board, we've asked, and they've accommodated us, Wild Rose Community Futures, are going to help us in union with, or conjunction with, the new architect to do community involvement, or get the community involved in the design of the new lodge, where what we want, what we need, differentiate the two. And when that's all done, we will pick a land for it. But the thinking is, when we make our needs and wants known, the land will probably more or less pick itself. So there are a couple, 3 or 4 sites available in the town. And yeah, so it's moving along. And if there's any questions, I'll certainly answer them. And if not, I'll move my report.
Any questions? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Division 7 councillor report.
Thank you. It's before you, couple of mentions. The evening meeting of the Drumheller Health Foundation, I attended their AGM, and I also sat in on the Drumheller Regional meeting, they call it. And the Drumheller Regional meeting, they just discussed what the smaller areas were doing for opening up their community centers, parks, and playgrounds. Starland was starting their face-to-face councils last week. That would have been 2 weeks ago. The pharmacies are starting to open up again for more drugs, prescriptions, that type of stuff. The province, there was some discussion around the special areas and shovel-ready projects, and some of them weren't relevant when they were putting them in, so there were some issues around that. The outside sports, Drumheller was starting their June the 12th for their local groups. There's some confusion about the clarification on the organized team sports and how they operate. I guess that, I have a granddaughter that's in baseball, and she said it's so stupid. They can't sit in the dugout side by side, but they can sit on the fence side by side. They can't sit in the dugout. They have to wash the ball after every so many throws, and they have to do, it's completely ridiculous as far as I'm concerned, but they are playing a little bit. So, student grants, there was some issue and some discussion around what was happening with that. And the regulations around washrooms and campgrounds and how they can be opened and what has to happen with them and how they have to be dealt with. So it was some good discussion. And the Drumheller Health, their AGM, it was only an hour. It wasn't that long, but I did ask them, because of some of their questions, I asked them, rather than me speak to them, that when we start into our budget process, that they come and do a presentation to us, and then council can deal with it in that way. So they agreed that they would do that. The other issue, and I don't know if it's an issue, we have a member that represents Wheatland County, Gary Crabson, sitting on there, and he does a really good job on there, but he's not a member, he's not a resident of Wheatland County anymore. He lives in Drumheller, so, council's, and he's willing to represent us, that isn't an issue, but he is not a resident of Wheatland County anymore, he's a resident of Drumheller, so that'd be a question when they do come and do their presentation, and council, if council's gonna look at handling some funding that way when we get into our budget process, that we might need to look at that, so that's just something to think about. And, the rest of it's on the thing there. I have two motions coming out of my report. One of them is for the Drumheller Regional Meeting and the Drumheller District, Health Foundation. They weren't that long, so funding, request for, compensation for that, I would only ask for a half day, not two half days. One was in the evening, one was in the morning, but, and I don't know how, Margaret, you'll put that down on your paper, but I just asked for the one, not for, that I attended them both, but only put it down as one per diem, not a full day either. You do that? Yeah. If she can figure it out. Okay. The other one is for the Alberta Care Conference coming up, and I know, Scott, you had shown some interest in that before. It's in Pincher Creek on September 9th and the 11th, and a motion to attend, be 2 nights, September 9th and September 10th, a motion to attend that on behalf of council as a zone rep. Oh, motion for a half, I don't know, a half day per diem, half day per diem for the 2 in Drumheller, 2 meetings in Drumheller.
Any council discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. And the conference?
And the Alberta Care Conference, September the 9th to the 11th for 2 nights in Pincher Creek.
Scott, were you hoping to attend that as well?
I can't give an answer on that right now. Could you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So this will be like the first conference, in-person conference that's been tried since COVID.
Sure, it might be.
I think.
Yep.
It'll be interesting, yeah.
The first one I'm hearing
Yeah.
that's they're planning to go forward with,
Yeah.
so that's good.
Well, nothing.
They're not calling it yet. Was the last I heard. Councillor Armstrong, was your motion just for yourself or for yourself and Deputy Reeve Clausen to attend?
For myself and possibly one other,
Okay,
if there's interest.
perfect. Any questions from council? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We're gonna move, oh, sorry.
The question for Margaret, did I email you the registration for that, Margaret?
Yes, you did, Councillor Armstrong.
Okay, thank you.
And just another comment, about Drum. A few of my ratepayers are quite happy with how Drum's reopening, their sports facilities. I know, they're having a hockey camp here in the next weeks, I wanna say it is. And my residents who normally go to Strathmore are quite happy going elsewhere right now because the asinine restrictions that the town of Strathmore is putting in on certain rec facilities is really tough for the players themselves. So they're really happy to go anywhere but that. And those are people that are a hell of a lot closer to Strathmore than anywhere else. So, just a comment.
Yeah, some of them, just as a comment further, that some of those, I think people have to get their heads on straight again. My grandson is attending one of those hockey things. They got to dress out in the parking lot. They can't dress in a dressing room. They can't, so you're right, some of the restrictions are absolutely stupid. What are they gonna do when they get on the ice? How can you skate 6 feet apart from each other on the skate, and if you can't get dressed in the same damn room?
And this isn't regulations by HS, this is coming down, this is municipality to municipality.
I know the ones Councillor Armstrong are referring to are provincially mandated. They have like extensive guidelines for sport and different.
Yeah, but you don't have
specific-
to, like, the residents that I talk to for hockey camps, in certain municipalities, they are not making them dress in the car or parking lots.
That is provincially mandated, actually. That's in the provincial recommendations for best practice. I'm very fully aware that the province is trying to mitigate, like, allowing as much as possible, but trying to mitigate the risk. And local municipalities do have some autonomy in doing additional things, so, but
Well, I tip my hat to the municipalities that are doing what they can to bring common sense back into that.
And I think the government and the municipalities have to start paying attention to what's going on out in the communities. These kids are not following those rules in the community. They're still having their parties, they're going to the lake, they're doing all that other kind of stuff, and yet when they go in to do a sport, they get regulated to this extent that the night before they were all together anyways. Like, it doesn't make sense, and the government has to start looking at some of that.
yeah, there's definitely different perspectives on it, and I know the government is trying to, just from hearing from different ministers in the ministry, they are trying to take into account different perspectives and do what they can, but there's definitely lots of different perspectives on it.
So I've got a question, like, Gleason right now is in being renovated.
Yeah.
So for next year, will administration be looking at running a hockey school, like an early hockey school out of Gleason? Like, I don't know how that works.
So
Is that on?
Gleason Egg Society
Falls on the Egg Society
operates.
shoulders? So if they want to do that, then.
Community group, one of the community groups.
Okay.
Yeah. They, throughout this, like the pandemic, I think that they were in consultation with some of our administration, just looking for advice and guidance in interpreting, like, the regulations as they were put in place, public health measures as they were put in place. But they are responsible for sort of governing that organization, running it, the operations.
Further that, just to kind of answer that question, they have talked, numerous Egg Society members have talked about putting ice in certain times, but it's just costly, and they have to have a pretty solid showing of individuals in order to make it viable, so.
But with this new equipment we're putting in, they can run ice, they could theoretically run ice.
Well, they could have run ice with the old
365.
equipment.
So I'll figure out a way to pay for it. Okay.
Viable or.
I'll move my report, by the way.
Oh, thank you, I almost.
Gleason used to have a summer spiel.
Not sure we voted on his chair.
Yeah, we did.
Did we? Okay.
Margaret, do you have that the motion passed for the conference?
I do have the motion passed for the conference.
Okay, we now have a motion on the floor to approve Councillor Armstrong's report. Any questions from council? Any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move back to 3.2, Deputy Reeves' report.
Hi, thank you for doing that for me. My report's in front of you. Just of note, Rocky Ford Council did approve the awarding of the contract to Tollefson, which was the lowest bidder, and everything's moving forward. I did get a note back from WRC administration saying that the project will probably be delayed now because the contractor did take on another project in the short term, so we'll see how that plays out. But any questions, I'll answer them. If not, I'll move my report for information.
Any questions or discussion?
You had us on pins and needles. We thought you were gonna bring something really big forward.
Just preparing.
No, just unloading the truck.
Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.1, Chief Administrative Officer report.
Good morning, Council. So on page 86 of the agenda packet, in June, I'd like to thank GM Biscario for the hard work he did. Definitely made it a lot easier when it came back, so I want to thank him for that. We did a site inspection, yesterday, actually, July 6th, so it's not so the site inspection lasted about 2 hours. There was, multiple people there, so representatives from GFL, Alberta Environment and Parks of Wheatland County. So we're awaiting a report from Dr. Daryl McCartney, who was there on behalf of the county, before making any further decisions on the, orders do fall with, GM Biscarial as well, so, he'll be using that report to help with guidance. The county office is reopened to the public on July 6th, so that's been going pretty well. Still fairly low foot traffic. We would anticipate that the foot traffic would increase closer to the tax deadline date, which this year is August 31st. Under the people services, we did one really great thing that came out of the Drumheller regional partner meetings is that there was some information on Canada Summer Job Grants that the application period had reopened. So based on that information, we did apply and we did receive a grant for the Canada Summer Jobs. So we had an additional employee, a summer student start on the Hamlet crew starting at the end of June. Just want to note that we are collecting additional statistics from the Fire Dispatch Service on the Master Fire Plan before circulation. We just wanted to make sure that those statistics were accurate. I believe that was correct before circulation. We're just on the council resolution tracker on page 88. Some items are being presented today in council, so those will be marked off. A lot of items are coming back on July 14th to the planning and priorities meeting. One item to note as well, speaking about in-person conferences, Wheatland County is to be hosting the RMA Fall Central meeting. Council did make a previous resolution that the Rosebud Hall would be the first choice and the Cheadle Hall would be the second choice. So we're just working on logistics for that. We are in discussions with RMA to see if it's virtual, in person. We believe that it is up to the choice of the municipality. So I believe the council's wish would be to move forward with an in-person meeting. However, we will kind of do planning for both to see, just in case one falls through or there's kind of an update on the whole situation as well. And I believe that is all from my report. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Any questions? A motion to accept the report as information.
I'll move that.
Councillor Eichert has moved. Any further discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.2.1, Corporate and Financial Services Report.
Good morning, Reeve Lincoln Council. My name is Tracy Buto, General Manager of Corporate and Financial Services. I'll just touch on a few items from the Corporate Services Report to Council on page 90 of the agenda. An Asset Management Cross-Functional Staff Committee has been formed to research and apply for a grant for asset management through FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Our first meeting is this Thursday, where we'll be speaking to other municipalities and learning more about asset management and how we should apply for the grant, what direction we should go with that grant. As well, the Senior Assessor is preparing for Designated Industrial Property, or DIP, inspections within ranges 20 and 21. Work is currently underway to better understand how the county can proceed with digital documents and files, including digital and electronic signatures, and especially documents that require corporate seals. We continue to work on electronic funds transfer and implementing Questica, which is a budgeting software. And as well, we have revised our capital project tracker, and staff will update that each month, and that should enable us, administration, to be able to provide updates to council. And lastly, East End is being planned for release in August, and this will provide residents with the option to receive their bills by email. Any questions?
Yeah, through the chair, that, mail-out survey that you sent out, what was the reason behind that? I'm getting questions from ratepayers. Some filled it out, some aren't filling it out, some, I haven't filled mine out yet. What's the reason behind that? What are we looking for?
Through the Reeve to council, is that the request for information? Is that what you're referring to?
The surveys to the properties with single residents requesting
On the assessment.
all the information about their property and the buildings and...
Yes. So that's a new practice. Other municipalities are also doing that. And it's just to gain updated information. So that's the purpose.
For their assessment or for what?
For assessment.
Isn't that what the assessor's supposed to be doing when he goes out and visits them?
It probably supplements the assessor's on-site information that he gathers and maybe streamlines, and my understanding is maybe simplifies that process because they gather some of that information from homeowner reporting.
So I guess my question then is, when they're asking me about it and they're saying, am I supposed to fill this out? Do I have to? What's my response? If you're comfortable, fill it out. If you're not, don't?
We encourage everyone to fill it out.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. I hate surveys. I hate them with a passion because to me, over the years and all the ones, every time I see one, I go through it and I look at every question. I figure, okay, what question do they want answered? There's one or two in there that they're looking for, and they fill it full of. That's the way I look at these, and I've done them through agriculture. I've done them through government. I've done them all through and that's how I look at them. So when they ask me, am I supposed to fill this out? What am I supposed to say? I'm not going to say I encourage you to. I'm just going to say if you feel comfortable doing it, do it.
What I can do is speak to our senior assessor, and I can get more information on that and email it to you.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. Where it could be a benefit from, and my understanding could be wrong, but it could make like the site visits more efficient, because if the assessor already has some of that basic information, he doesn't have to.
Back of my place anyhow. Can't see into my basement, but pretty close to everything else.
But yes, that would be great. If we get more information brought back, that would be excellent. Thank you.
My dad hasn't been finished.
Any other questions on the corporate and financial services report? That was a good question. A motion to accept the report as information.
Also move.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Any final discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.2.2, procurement policy.
Good morning again. I'm here to present amendments made to the procurement policy. As you are aware, municipalities are legally bound to follow several trade agreements, which include the New West Partnership Trade Agreement, or NWPTA, Canadian Free Trade Agreement, Agreement of Internal Trade, among others. The NWPTA has the lowest thresholds that municipalities must follow, so that is why it's mentioned in the policy when purchasing goods over $75,000, services over $75,000, and construction over $200,000. Municipalities must follow the rules within the trade agreement. Many municipalities express a desire to support local. While this is understandable, a municipality can be legally challenged if they are not compliant with trade agreements. Administration has handed out a document to Council called Guidelines to the Procurement Obligations of Domestic and International Trade Agreements, where it states on page 4, section 2A, that extending a preference for local or domestic goods, services, or suppliers would be considered inconsistent under the principle of openness. Procurements must meet 4 principles, which include openness, non-discrimination, non-circumvention, and transparencies. Municipalities also must be cautious about the wording that is included in their policy regarding supporting local to avoid legal challenges. For thresholds lower than 75,000 and 200,000, the following statement has been added since Council last reviewed this policy. When procuring deliverables under the trade agreement thresholds, consideration should be given to obtaining quotes from local suppliers whenever possible. Quotes from local suppliers may be accepted if the price is within 5% of the lowest quote obtained. This statement was created by legal counsel to support local purchases under trade agreement thresholds. Staff are still required to follow best practice and obtain quotes from outside the local area as well to ensure that the county is receiving best value for its residents. This clause is also applicable and has been added to Section E, construction between 75,000 to 200,000. Previously, this section was treated as if it fell within trade agreement thresholds. Administration has amended this section to require an RFP or request for proposal process, but also allows consideration to local suppliers. Other minor amendments have been noted on the request for decision. Does Council have any questions? Thank you.
I'm glad to see that in there.
Absolutely.
Gives us some leeway.
Any questions from Council?
I just have one, or maybe more. When we're under the threshold, where I understand we have more leeway, but when staff goes out for quotes and they, I don't know how to say it, can they choose who they want to get quotes from, or does it have to be an open quote so anybody can bid on it?
I'm going to call a friend for that one.
So through the REEV, typically we have, depending on the type of project, a list of contractors that we typically reach out to. We add to that list all the time, based on performance, based on results that we get, and availability as well. So we don't necessarily have a full tender process with that, but preferred contractors is what we go for.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Any other questions on the procurement policy? Looking for a motion to approve the updated policy.
So moved.
Also move. Sorry.
That's all right. Give it to Glenn.
Give it to Glenn. Councillor Kester has moved to approve procurement policy 2.1. Any further discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.3.1, Community and Development Services Report.
Good morning, Council. Matt here from Administration to present to you the Community and Development Services Report for June 2020. There's several ongoing projects that we're working on right now. Two of note in community services are for the Speargrass Recreation Area and the Clooney Playground. So the Speargrass Recreation Area site planning and required permits are ongoing, so we're getting ready for that and working closely with the community. The Clooney Playground equipment, we distributed a community engagement survey, launched and closed. We received 53 responses back, and so we're working on securing quotes for that equipment, for the top-rated equipment selections and for the survey. So we have ongoing communication with Rosebud, community tree planting, and other various community outreach projects. With regards to the Community Services Master Cultural Parks Plan, we will be bringing a little report to the next Planning and Priorities meeting to discuss the way forward with regards to council feedback on that master plan. Economic development, as council is aware, we've been having weekly, now bi-weekly, infinite possibility calls. As Reeve-Link mentioned, the last call, or the second 2 calls ago, we had Todd Hirsch, Vice President and Chief Economist with ATB. High turnout for that and lots of engagement in that call. We're working on updating our community profile, of course, so looking for council feedback on that as well. So hopefully council can provide that feedback in the near future so that we can incorporate that into the community profile. Our economic development officer is very busy engaging with the community, assisting with businesses and other organizations as we move down the line during this unprecedented time. Geographic information systems, as GM Buteau indicated, we're having a cross-departmental committee with regards to asset management, so our GIS analyst is part of that committee, which is quite exciting. Most of the 1,700 faded sign replacements have been replaced, so that is also good news. Planning and development and safety codes on page 132 and 133. We have actuals year-to-date in May. As you can see, most of the permits are slightly down with regards to 2020 and comparing 2019 and 2018, but they're not too far off. There's not a large delta, and that I would attribute to, obviously, COVID, so no concern there. Planning applications are on par as well, so that's very encouraging. And in protective services, we're just continuing ongoing duties as required. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions regarding the Community and Development Services report?
Matt, what's the timeline for the Clooney Playground equipment to be installed and ready to go?
For sure. So through the Reeve to Councillor Wilson, I would forecast that it would be kind of a end of July, August work on that one, and kind of getting shovels in the ground, so to speak. But I can definitely keep you apprised of that as we proceed.
Any other questions? A motion to accept the report as information. Deputy Reeve Clausen has moved. Any final discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.3.2, Carsland and District Community Association and Agricultural Society Letter of Support.
Good morning, Madam Reeve and members of council. It's Dave Rhymes, Community Services Coordinator. In your package, you have the letter or email, I guess, from the Carsland Community Association requesting a letter of support from the county as they're working through the COVID requirements from Alberta Health Services. I have also been in contact with them, researched what some other communities were doing, and provided some input into most of the communities that are working through those requirements in their agreements with the groups booking the facilities. It's up to them to meet those requirements of AHS. So I believe that they've worked on amending their agreement to allow for that, but I think they're still looking for this letters. So I can answer any questions.
Council's wishes.
Go back and find the recommendation.
I'd like to move that the council direct administration to draft a letter of support for the Carsland District Community Association and Ag Society for opening their outdoor recreation facilities.
Council discussion. Is any councillor opposed?
Guess my question would be, when these communities start doing that, do we have to send letters to all of them saying we support it?
Only if they ask.
I have no objection to sending it, but
only if they ask for it.
I guess my thoughts are that with stage 3 moving in, that, municipalities give their opinions on, you know. I understand their frustration. I mean, they feel like they had everything covered and yet they were turned down for opening up, so, it is their income.
They're the ones, they're, as a community group, they're the ones taking on the liability, and it's nothing to do with us. If they wanna go ahead and do it, we're not gonna go down there with armed guards and stop them. I hope.
But with going what you were saying before, a previous discussion about, opening and having support from municipalities, I think this kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah.
It kind of shows that we're supporting them, you know, and
I don't, maybe it goes on deaf ears, I don't know, but at least,
I don't have a problem with
provincial
them doing it, I'm just wondering why we would, but that doesn't matter.
We had a bull riding and we didn't ask for help, letter of. But I fully support giving you guys one, that's why if they ask for it, that's. If they have trouble, yeah, we'll back them up.
Any further discussion?
And it just says that they encourage people to be dressed at home, but if they can't, it's so just pointing it out.
That's what's in the guidelines, is just where possible or something,
Where
there's wording
possible,
something
and
like
if you
that.
can't reach, you can put a maximum capacity on locker rooms. That's why some municipalities aren't making hockey players change at home.
Different ways to interpret the guidelines. They're there to assist groups.
I'm always amazed at the use of the word recommendations, because that is such a loaded term. Like, does it mean anything? I honestly believe that a recommendation is simply that you can push that envelope as far as you want to.
Well, when it says discourage, well, that's nothing you can't do.
Well, exactly, and that's the same thing, so.
That's up to you, like, roll the dice.
Yeah, so
My understanding is
Yep.
these aren't like public health, measures that are being enforced. They're guidance because GOA was hearing repeatedly requests for guidance in what are the best practices in this industry or in this business or this sport or whatever. And so they've tried to, where they can, create kind of some general best practice guidelines, however you want to interpret it.
I understand but to me, it's government is starting to get involved in a little deeper than what I think they should be getting involved. If you allow, this is my soapbox, if you allow 50 people to gather in the hall and have a dance, what the hell is the difference if there's 200 in there dancing or 50? The repercussions if something goes wrong is the same. Number of people, it's how they act when they're in those facilities, just like before. You control that. But to tell them that you can't have more than what...
I think it's very complex, and we have, at least personally, I haven't spent sufficient time like examining all of the minimal kind of body of evidence or science around COVID that is available. At this point, it's very minimal because it's so new. Obviously, different levels of government have different responsibilities. Health falls under the province. They are providing these guidance, and I agree, all levels of government are getting in. I don't need to go there. We're discussing a letter for Carsland and District Community Association. It's a good question. Personally, I would support if there is an organization that is presenting due diligence and, you know, has outlined how they are trying to implement the guidelines to the best of their ability. That's the question before us right now.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it, it's just the fact that...
I'll just say something here, because this drives me nuts. I encounter a lot of people every day. I've been working every single day through this pandemic. I've seen people wear masks. I've seen people, and it's different, but as soon as they're out of the public eye, and I'll state this clearly, the masks drop and they talk to you face to face. Happens all over the place. See it every day. Yeah. So it is absolutely insane that you ask somebody to do something, but their personal choice is to not to do it. See it all the time. And you get blamed, you get shamed for it. I tell people, hey, if I got to wear it for work, I'll wear it for work. I don't care. I have them in my truck. Some places I do, some places I don't. I have to fill out 3 different forms to go into 3 different places. Some places check my temperature, some places infrared check the corner, my tear ducts in my eyes. There's no consistency anywhere. So the confusion lies in the direction from above. There is no set direction. There is no set law. There's lots of suggestions. There's lots of recommendations. To me, those are opinions. It's absolutely ridiculous. The transportation industry has been working every day through this. You seen anybody sick on it? No. We encounter lots of people every day. Like so, yeah, I wash my hands. I do what I can, because if I get sick, I lose my business. That's the fact.
I agree totally. Our shop has not been shut down. He restricted some of the people coming in and sit and drink coffee, but they stand outside and do exactly the same thing that they were doing inside the door. What the hell? Like, we have not, and I haven't seen, I'm like you. It's
just a reason to tell the people that you don't like.
So we have a motion on the floor.
What is it about?
Any further discussion to the motion on the floor? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.33, Eagle Lake RV Resort Water Supply.
Madam Reeve, members of council, this report's coming back to council. It was a motion at the January 14th meeting to look into the water at Eagle Lake RV Resort. Staff have researched Alberta Environment Protection guidelines, as well as Alberta Health requirements and guidelines. Our utility staff and our environmental coordinator were involved with this review, and from the review, we concluded that the water supply system at the RV resort is compliant. I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Hi, Scott Clausen here. Just one question. Is that our staff doing that testing, or is that them?
That is them.
Okay. Thank you.
Is the county asking for the reports to be sent to them also?
We have not asked for that. It's falls under Alberta Health Services, and they're getting it's under their jurisdiction, and they're getting all the reports as required.
Process is if there's a bad back tea, which is what they call them, everybody knows pretty quick. Okay. Like the fan and the thing hit pretty fast.
So, to administration, why did this even come to
Yeah,
council? Oh, you asked about it?
Yeah, we were talking about the water, the campground one time, and I was just curious about if it had been done. Nobody knew, so.
Okay, thank you.
That was me.
Any other questions?
I just have one. Why wouldn't we just ask the health inspector and the district health inspector in Strathmore if they're compliant or not? Because they're the ones that what they say is the ultimate test, I would think.
Through the Reeve, we did talk to the health inspector and confirm that.
Any other questions? A motion to accept as information.
So moved.
Deputy Reeve Clausen has moved to accept the report as information. Any final discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Does council need a break, or are we good to keep going?
I would like a 5-minute break, please.
I just realized I didn't give anybody a break, and you're not at home in your jammies or whatever. So. All right, we will break for 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at 10:45.
Chocolate, I got some more in here.
Oh, do you? No, one's good.
Meeting back to order. Councillor Kester, do we have you there? Councillor Kester, just confirming that you're on the line.
Yes, I am. You were blocked out by this call is being recorded.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. We're going to move to 4.4.1, Transportation and Agriculture Report.
Okay. Good morning, Council. You have the report in front of you. Just some highlights. The crews are moving forward as best they can. There's with the reduced hours and reduced staff, I think everyone knows that we're a lot behind in a lot of the duties that we were hoping to get this year. The higher than average rainfall in June really set us back with road construction and patching, that sort of thing. So recovering from that now, but as you know, we've extended out the hours for that crew just to finish this job. It's been one after the other on this one, so we're hoping to get this one done by the end of July. The road opened up, and then middle of August to have the site cleanup, like the field work. But hopefully by the end of August, I can see that road will be open, gravelled, and out of people's hair. So fingers crossed on that. That rain today didn't help, but some other things. Just an update. We were directed to do a redland study for Phase 3. So just an update, we have reached out to there's 10 residents there. I think we've gotten responses back from 3 or 4 of them. The remainder, we're having a real difficult time tracking down phone numbers even on that. So we're going to go to door-to-door consultation now because we don't have any other option, basically. So when I have that report back, I'll bring it back to council. And already the overview is that there's not a lot of interest there's some interest in having a water, but not a lot of interest in contributing anything towards that water. So just an update for council. We'll see what the full report shows after we've spoken to the rest of the residents, but just a heads up on that one. And then, as far as the construction crew, once they are completed 245, we're going to stay on that job, and then we're already planning on doing the Carsland grading immediately after that. So we've got the grading plan submitted through Matt's group there and Brian's group this week or last week. So we should be ready to move on site once that crew is done here to start getting that site ready for a building. So those are my highlights. Able to answer questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions?
Mike, I guess sent you a letter from someone about that curve on Highway 24. Mm-hmm. Can you just go forward with that by yourself, or do you need any support from council?
Yeah, through the chair, just a confirmation on exactly which curve of that intersection it is. It wasn't quite clear. I can, if you know, if not, I can reach out to the landowner there or the resident.
Well, it's it's anyone who's traveling on it. It's goes between Carsland and Speargrass, so it's just east of McKinnon, around that bend. The inside shoulder is worn down, so there's no actual shoulder on that corner. So it's caused a few rollovers and accidents.
Okay. Nope, fair enough. I can reach out to transportation.
She did send a letter to Focus Stefan a while back, but there was no response.
Yeah, no, I'll through the chair, I'll contact the actual Alberta Transportation representative.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a big patch. It's not that.
Yeah, I'll bring back their feedback if they're willing to look at it, or if they need a more formal letter to move forward on that sort of thing.
Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions under transportation or agriculture?
Just a question about, 261 when we reclaim it there. Are we adding oil to it and repacking it, or are we just breaking it up again?
So no update on that. The patching was completed for portions of it. We knew we were gonna go back and, I mean, that's another project here. We're really intending to go back with our large, reclaimer machine and relay and possibly put another total lift of oil and gravel, and that really would have tightened that road up. Truthfully, it's holding up better than I had expected. I thought we'd have a few more blowouts than we do. The spots that we blew out, we kind of predicted they were gonna blow out. We knew we were gonna go out this year. Basically just building up the structure until we get a really good base below this and relaying through that. So I think even this week, pending weather, was when they were planning on moving out there, relaying it, putting the gravel in those spot fixes, but definitely not the whole road anymore like we wanted to.
Probably not gonna be this week.
Okay, yeah, I know it's still pretty soft, where it broke up, it's really soft, which is normal. But I did notice over the winter time, just the winter maintenance with the truck did a lot of shoulder damage too.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if there's some other way that we can, not wreck the road while trying to keep it clean.
Right.
Yeah, because it broke up the shoulder quite a bit all the way down, so. And I have lots of eyes on that road that phone me all the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we made note of that when those concerns were raised in the winter, possible wing damage off the snow plows, so.
Yeah, because there was a grader and the plow. It's just the weight of it on the shoulder, it just seems to break it all up. So. And then once it froze, it was fine, but before that, it did a lot of damage. Yeah.
One more, Mike, sorry. For all the gravel pits, in Wheatland County, there's a percentage that goes, somewhere in the budget, a percentage of every load hauled out of there for every ton.
Correct.
Where does that go to?
That might be a better question for finance. It's a community aggregate payment levy. I believe it's.
Yes,
Brian
from administration. I have that. I believe it's just like any unowned county gravel pit, and it would be the line. It used to be under taxation, and it was like specifically called like community like aggregate pay levy. We do have a schedule fee for that. I believe it's like 25 cents a ton, and it mostly goes under. It's kind of a self-reporting thing, and we do have someone that kind of works on that diligently in Mike's department. And just like a general ballpark figure, we receive about $50,000 a year from it.
It doesn't come out of our county gravel pits.
Okay.
It's only private.
Yeah, that's right.
And so where does that, is that just go into revenue?
Yep, and then actually the community aggregate, we do transfer that one into a reserve. The reserve's on the financial statement too. I can pull it out and send that out to council for information. But yeah, roughly we receive around $50,000 a year. We budget for it every year. Any new gravel pits, that come on, they'll have to pay that as well. It's kind of just like a payment to help infrastructure, when it's being hauled out. And it does kind of fall into general revenue. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I'd like to
see that. Through the chair to Donna, some of that money goes in. I know out in my area that money, Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when our trucks are hauling from the gravel pits, the oil or water or calcium, whatever it is, put in front of some of the residents along there, that's where that funding comes out of, so the resident doesn't pay for it. It comes out of that. I sat on the committee that set that up provincially years back, and it was set up so that the communities that those gravel pits are in got some advantage of that gravel coming out of that community. And the idea was to go back into those communities, into their halls, into their, that kind of stuff.
So is that, is it separated out? How much comes out of Carsland, how much comes out of,
Each
which
pit
pit?
has to have a record. The owner of the pit has to keep a record of that because they have to bring it in. It's on word alone, isn't it? That we don't go out there.
Yeah, it's on our system for sure. Yep.
I guess long term, I'm thinking that the community might want to take some of that stuff coming out of Carsland. but I'd like to see
Is that a private pit in Carsland?
Will,
Is it there's a private one?
Yes, it's coming out, yes, 'cause, yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
So kind of further to that, when was the last time that was looked at for whether that's a fair amount of, revenue generated comparison to other municipalities? Probably hasn't been looked at in a long time.
compared to what we have put up with.
Through the chair, Brian from administration, it was actually looked at fairly recently. I think it could have been perhaps 2017 or 2018. I know within the last couple of years, and we can get that information again for council, and just update it and see where we fall kind of within the market anyways.
Brian, can you correct me? Originally, that was set up, it was in the act so that the municipalities couldn't step in and just arbitrarily put whatever they wanted on there. Has that changed? It was set up in the act, so it had to be in that aggregate CAP, the provincial.
Yes, to the chair,
I think. Had to go back in there to change the price so that it stayed regular across the province.
Yeah, and I think through the chair, I believe there's a limit on that price. It has to go kind of brush up on that act.
Yeah.
And I believe we're below the limit. Like we don't go right to the top. So I'd have to go brush up on that, but I believe that's kind of the treatment of that.
I'd like to see whatever information we could get on that. That'd be great.
Says it's up to 40 cents per ton.
Up to 40 cents a ton?
If that's accurate.
Yes, I believe that is accurate, and I believe we're at 25 cents a ton. Is that right, Mike?
Same thing. I think we did raise it. I want to say it's 30, so we'll have to.
Oh, okay.
You're right. We did review it in the last 3 years, and we increased it to what the province allowed us to increase it to, when I remember. But
okay,
the resolution will show that.
We'll bring back some information to council on that.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for getting those spots gravelled that I emailed you about. On I think it was 214, the last one. I drove it yesterday, and it looks like you guys started graveling about 30 yards north of the intersection. And because there wasn't a ton of gravel right on the intersection, that's where it was really bad.
Oh, really?
That's actually where one of our graders slid into the ditch, so.
This year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we could just get another load or get the gravel foreman to go out, the grader foreman to go out and have a look, it's just, that corner's bad.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one for Mike. The Rosebud Lagoon, what's the process, or I've got a couple ratepayers that would like to go over the site plan, and I don't know if it's even possible to change, but I did say maybe we could go out and explain why we chose that site to them. I don't know what the timeline is or when we're going to start or anything like that either. I would, if we could go out and have a walkthrough with the ratepayer, I would appreciate that.
No, definitely. I've met with the community at a community meeting earlier this year with the recess group to discuss the lagoon. So if there's anybody that wasn't at the meeting, or I can meet individually with somebody on site. If you just want to forward me their contact information.
Sure, I could do that, and I would like to go with them too, just so they I keep getting inquiries, so I'm thinking I should go out and have a peek at it too, if you don't mind. I'll get a hold of you after the meeting and we'll chat about it. How's that sound?
Sure.
Okay.
Excellent. Any other questions? A motion to accept the Transportation and Agriculture report as information.
Also move.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.42, contract award for the automatic vehicle location system.
Okay, thank you. So this contract award is for our AVL system, or basically a GPS tracking. We implemented this on our equipment, I'd say about 5-6 years ago now. Very beneficial as far as tracking hours and mileage and maintenance requirements, all that sort of thing. This contract is really to bring us to the next level. What we've utilized it for right now is a lot of it has been work alone policy, that sort of thing. The foreman being able to track where their grader operators, a lot of our staff work alone. So it's very important that we keep that connection with their supervisors. Pretty much all of our foremen check that site right now at the end of the day, make sure that all their staff are in and they can confirm that. So a really big benefit to that. But as you'll see here, there's some other things we can look at here. As we get deeper into our transportation requirements, our training and repair schedules that we need to follow, this is really going to help us with determining maintenance schedules, kind of sending out reminders. The things that Corey has been working on with this is pretty innovative as far as what we can do with our systems here. So as part of the procedure, we did reach out and get 3 quotes. Fleet Complete is who we currently use, and we've tried to attempt to have them improve their system to meet some of the needs we have. We still have their quote here, which is less than you'll see as MRF is our preferred vendor, but I mean, Corey can speak to that. What MRF brings to the table is substantially more than we can get from the other 2 bidders here. That said, we also have a contract with them for our Ag Service Board equipment right now. We're looking at bringing them on for our peace officer equipment replacement. So they have one system in place. Will save staff time and consistency in the future. So that's why our recommendation to go with MRF for a 5-year term.
Questions from council?
Sorry, I was talking and nobody heard me, I bet. Anyway, when I look at year 1 to year 5, there's quite a little variance in every year. Is that more software, more equipment, more things getting added on, or?
Just pull up the word here.
Page 166.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure why the breakdown is the way it is for the initial year here. They didn't submit it on the report. Corey, if you're on the line there, do you have any input into that number, the initial year?
Yes, through the Reeve. So basically, year 1 there is some upfront costs to implement the solution. And then because we're kind of midway through the year, part of the subscription fee is less. That's why. So then, of course, that's why year 5 is less as well, because the subscription ends sort of midway through the year.
That makes sense. Good question. Thanks. Any other questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move that we do the recommended action is accept MRF bid for 5-year contract for $278,790.
Councillor Kester has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.4.3, Muirfield sale of lots process.
Okay, thank you. This RFD is in response to a request for a procedure on moving forward with sales of Muirfield lots that we've very soon put into our name. So this is a proposal put forward by our legal team, and I think we vetted it and we're in agreement with it, and in planning and development departments as well as financial services. So basically the procedure will be, initially we have to go out there and determine which lots we can actually sell. There's a number of lots that are not serviced fully or serviced with partial servicing, no roads but sewer, water, that sort of thing. So we're going to do a full investigation out there, determine which level of lots we can sell. Once we have that, we will sign the exclusive realtor listing agreement. You can see the profile of the realtors that have currently been working on the sales. I think they say for the last since July of 2016, sorry. They've been the sole realtors for that development. So we've talked to them. Basically, after we get this assessment of the lots, we will sign an agreement with them for sole ownership or sole contract with the sales, and then we will approve the selling price per lot, and then we will start marketing.
Council's wishes, any questions?
How long will it evaluate the lots, I guess?
I predict a month and a half, 2 months probably.
How did we arrive at the prices?
So through the chair, the prices that are proposed here are their initial back in 2016 valuations. We will have to reevaluate the numbers here and come up. So under the pre-approved selling, once results of the inspection evaluation note have been completed, and especially any deficiencies have been noted and rectified, some will be provided to the realtor. Then they're going to suggest a price for us that we will review and accept or renegotiate, that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, that I guess make us compliant with the Municipal Government Act. I know when we sell other properties all over the county, we have to have tenders, or we have to have and I'm just making sure that when we set these prices, we're in compliance with that act, I guess, is new territory for me, that's for sure.
Yeah, so through the chair, you're right. We'll need to sell county-owned land at fair market value, and if we don't, then we have to advertise it in the paper for 2 weeks that we're selling it for less. So with this review, we can be assured that we're looking at fair market value assessments.
Okay. One other thought, has there been any consideration when we didn't, the prior owners of the land, we said, no, you're not selling any more land till you have a solution for the wastewater, and nothing's happened. So moving forward, are we going to take this money from these lots, all of it, some of it? What are we going to put in a reserve for a long-term solution for the wastewater out there? Like our original plan when we were pressuring the previous owners of the land. If that makes any sense without naming names.
Yeah, I'd like to see, I guess, instead of it going into general reserves, the sale, if it could stay within there for servicing it.
Yes, Council. Brian from administration. So I typically don't like setting up lots of smaller reserves, but for kind of a transaction this large, it would be beneficial to set one up. We'd have to get a council resolution to set one up. So what we could do is, because the lot sales aren't like pending as of today, we could bring back a resolution in August when we're redoing some of the other, updating the other kind of reserve policies that we do have. And then what we do is we set specific parameters around the reserve. So something just off the top of my head would be any proceeds from lot sales from the Lakes of Muirfield subdivision would go into a Lakes of Muirfield wastewater solution, like wastewater reserve, something along those lines. And then just separate that out so we can come up with that permanent solution and fund it through the lot sale. I believe that's council's intention anyways. It is very simple to do. We just have to set up a new reserve, which hasn't been done at the county in a while. So
I think we're in new territory here. In 3 years, I've almost been on council, and we're actually looking at something that's going to pay some money to the county as opposed to going out the door all the time. So I'm good with, I love the idea that we're actually going to sell something.
Yeah, I love the idea of the county being a developer.
Somebody has to do it.
Wasn't by choice.
I'll make the motion and the Wheatland County Council approved retaining the realtor and the proposed process for the sale of land at the Lakes of Muirfield being acquired as presented.
Any further discussion?
Ryan?
Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
Council, just a question for clarification for administration. Does council want administration to set up that reserve for the Lakes of Muirfield for that type of wastewater solution through lot sales? We could bring it back next council meeting if that's something that council would prefer.
Do you require a motion for that, or is that just direction?
Just direction. I can just note it and I'll bring it back.
Yeah, no, that's my intention. I can put it in a motion if it helps.
There is going to be, through the chair, there is going to be more infrastructure down the road, and that's where that reserve can go as far as council is concerned.
Okay, we'll set a reserve, like just a broad general reserve, maybe specifically for infrastructure, and we can bring that back for council consideration at the next meeting.
Excellent, thank you. We'll move to 4.44, encroachment agreement Rosebud.
Okay, the RFD you see before you is for a, based on a request for an encroachment in one of the lanes in Rosebud. The request is put forward to construct a retaining wall and a gravel path through there, so I'm not sure if we can go through the overhead here, but it kind of shows the details of where they're proposing the retaining wall and that sort of thing. Sorry, just a little bit farther down still, Mackenzie. Yeah, so that site plan there shows the retaining wall. So it's a lane. It's on the east side of Rosebud, undeveloped laneway there. We circulated to departments. We have no infrastructure in there. We have no, it's fairly steep slopes, so we have no plans in the immediate future of developing anything on that. That said, this encroachment agreement does allow us to go in within 30 days and ask for removal if we do have plans in the future somewhere. So we don't see a concern allowing them to construct this. So the recommendation is for approval.
Council's wishes.
I'll move that Wheatland County Council approve an approachment agreement in the use of the undeveloped road allowance with the owner. Roll number 3776,000 within Rosebud based on the information as presented in this RFD.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.45, Muirfield Water Meter Project.
Okay, this RFD you see before you stems from, once again, the takeover of the Muirfield, Lakes of Muirfield development, and some issues we're finding as we start taking over these lands. So we started investigating, we've taken over the water system. We looked at taking over the billing immediate at the end of July there. So as we got deeper into it, we realized that the meters that they have installed in Muirfield, all 167 dwellings or meters, I guess, are a different manufacturer. and incompatible with our meter reading system, billing software, all that sort of thing. So we have looked at purchasing a reader like they had Rocky, our contractor, or the developer's contractor had been using. There really is going to be an issue with the crossover with our billing system, bringing that information in. We contacted quite a few different people trying to find a solution for this, and it really is going to be quite onerous on our staff. Lots of opportunity for errors as the crossover on this sort of thing. So the other options are full meter replacement, going to a Neptune system like we have in every one of our other communities. We found this neat little option, which is basically an add-on system that catches the reads outside of the meter and converts them into something that our readers can find, that can read and compute through that. So we're currently doing testing. We've taken a couple of meters in Muirfield, and we're doing a 2-week test to make sure there's no hiccups on this kind of thing, which is why you don't see a firm recommendation one way or another on here, because I'm worried if something comes out of that it can't work. I want to make sure I have the worst case scenario proposed here, which is $100,000 for meter replacement. We're estimating it's called an ERT system add-on at around worst case $70,000. So we're hoping for the lower, and preliminary it looks like we probably will be able to go that way. But I wanted to present both options here.
Council's wishes.
I just have some questions here. So what I don't understand is, when we have a development in the county, do we not spec out the meters, like for developments in the past, or is something that we missed on this? Like, we have these engineers that work for us, and these kind of things shouldn't happen. They should be easily work with their system. We should spec out whatever we use and force them to utilize that. That's one thing. I do know the meters in Muirfield are quite large because of the fire suppression systems. I think they're 3/4 and I think they're 2-inch. They're fairly large meters, so they're very expensive to replace. And I do know that I've heard that the meters have already been changed. The heads have been changed when the current company came in. That doesn't work. It's all gelled up. So I do know they changed the heads because it was a manual read system, and then they went to their radio read system. So, and we also just bought a reading unit not that long ago because I heard of WRC now, and it's not compatible at all.
From what I understand through IT, it doesn't transfer the data correctly. There's a lot of staff time, a lot of backup. Corey, if you're still on the line, if you could speak to the IT requirements on this.
Yes, through the Reeve. So basically the new device that we bought is fully compatible with the Neptune system that we have throughout the county. We've just recently actually upgraded our software system to Neptune 360, which allows that little reader device to just automatically upload the data into the system right from the reader. So the system in Lakes and Muirfield have a completely different reader system, and we've talked to Neptune and AccuFlow. They're the company and the developers of the Neptune system, to see if that's their readers or that meter is like compatible. And unfortunately, there is no way to convert the way their readers read into the Neptune system that we use. So this has kind of forced our hand in the direction that it seems like we need to go, which is using Neptune system. So we've kind of discovered that there's it seems to be quite proprietary, these systems. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about it otherwise. Yeah.
So I was trying to understand your question. So in hamlets, we require one system, like they're all one
So, yeah,
streamlined system,
we're-
but are you suggesting we should require that for private developments as well?
For sure, anybody that comes in and says we want to develop and we're putting something in, it should work with our system after the fact. In case we ever have to do something, it's a no-cost thing to do. Set a standard and say, more like saying you got to have sidewalks on both sides of the street or something like that. You must put in X type of system, so it works with us in the future.
So I've got a question, that a meter, in my mind, a meter is a meter, but because of the fire suppression, these meters have to have more consumption so that's not so they're not using a normal meter then,
Yeah, parts of the subdivision are, have fire suppression in them, so the meters have to be larger because the volume of water is, that's like when you see a basement, there's been ones that have flooded out there quite fast because the water line is large, everything's larger because it accommodates that fire flow.
Okay then, so
Fire suppression system.
they will not, so depending on where in the subdivision the house is, there's gonna be a completely different cost of meter.
Yeah.
So,
There's only like 5 or 6, up in Coats Close, they don't have those. But anyways, I can,
okay, so the ERT conversion is just a is something that goes on to the existing meter? And we don't have to change the meter, or do we have to do both of these things? That's a question to administration.
Yeah, so through the chair, they are a side attachment, I guess you say, to the meter. There's nothing physically with the pipes, it's an electronic connection. I was trying to see if I had a picture of them here. It's basically a little 2 by 2 inch box that connects through there.
so something else on here too, I saw the prices of having plumbers and stuff do it. Places like AccuFlow and those guys, they have meter installers that do it cheaper than that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't need a plumber to put a meter in.
No, and through the...
Usually just upgrading what's ever there, those guys that go out and do it.
So through the chair, like I say, this is the worst case scenario. We actually have, since I've written this RFD, received a formal quote from AccuFlow, and it is less than the numbers shown here.
I'd like to see us wait till we get some better information.
I think the way the RFD is written is it's just directing it is directing to approve, but I think it would give discretion to administration to choose the most efficient way to provide this, or to make this work with our system, is my understanding. So we would be approving it, but just with a maximum budget, and then it would be up to administration to determine the most efficient way to do it.
So at this point in time, we're gonna be hopefully selling lots down the road. So these new builds that are going in there, should we be directing the builder that they have to change? Like, will administration now be putting what our preferred or our only option is for water meters? Like, I just want to, from this point on, that we don't have to keep doing this, so.
I think it would go where, because we're the developer now, they will come to us and buy the meter from us, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect,
And
thank you.
pay to install or whatever, and then have it inspected and make sure it works.
My assumption, and administration can correct me if I'm wrong, is just that we would be approving it this way for timeliness, because we don't have another
That's
council
fine.
meeting until
The last
mid-August.
thing, I'll state this, the last thing I want to see is change the whole meter out, because they're not that old in there, and the larger meters don't wear out as fast as the smaller ones. But I do appreciate it needs to work with our system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I prefer to go with the ERT system. Preference?
Because at the end of the day,
Hello?
how many utility accounts do we have in Wheatland County? 500?
Sorry, I missed that.
How many utility accounts in the county?
I want to say, well over 500 for sure.
Councillor Kester, go ahead.
Yeah, that being said, we still have to get a system that's compatible with the county. We have to move that way sooner or later. I'm comfortable with staff researching it out and doing it, the best possible way for the future use. Other thing I'll just throw out there, we talked about having a reserve fund set up with these lot sales for infrastructure. I believe this would qualify as infrastructure from that reserve fund. So at the end of the day, we know exactly what we got ourselves into here.
Yes. Council's wishes.
I'll make the motion that Wheatland County approve the Muirfield Water Meter project to be tendered and completed in 2020 with the proposed maximum budget of $100,000.
Any further discussion?
And hopefully lots less.
Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.46, Range Road 205 funding agreement.
Okay, thank you. So this next RFP is, agreement or approval to enter into the agreement for 50% cost sharing for the construction of Range Road 205. So just a little history of this. Range Road 205 is accessing primarily industry out east of Chancellor. This was proposed to be constructed in 2020. We put the application in for funding in November. Then through December and the budget talks, we actually pulled it, barring, pending response from the industry on that road, if they were actually going to expand like they were planning, kind of necessitating our construction of this. So a little bit of history on that. We are still listing this as construction 2021 as of right now. Obviously, we're going to have a conversation about this at budget discussions this fall. Recent conversations with them is that they have delayed the project for this year, but they are anticipating expanding their facility in 2021 still. So good news. Good news. We'll follow back up with them in a few months and see if that's still the same situation. But like I say, the road is a $5 million road with 60 vehicles per day right now. So it is a little bit outside of our scope of what we normally look at for construction on that. So this contract, I've confirmed with AT, it doesn't bind us to anything. We just can't use the money for anything else other than construction of this road. So a little bit of background.
Just a question, so is the full road, like, I thought the last 2 miles, the last 3 miles to the south were constructed in a few years. It's been a few years, but they were rebuilt here 20 years ago.
Yeah, through the chair, we'd have to do a reevaluation. We haven't even got the design fully done on this yet, so there may be some reductions in that based on what we find in the road bed after we do some testing. But
yeah, Mike, is there a end date for this grant for the road? Say it doesn't get built to 2023, or is there a timeline on it?
So through the chair, initially it was the end of 2020. The funding expired. We've asked if an extension to 2021 can be granted, and they said that shouldn't be an issue. We'll move forward on that to make sure that it's in writing. Past 2021, we don't know for sure.
Council's wishes.
So you need a motion to defer that for a year?
No, to approve entering in, and then we would just have the option to access it if we keep it on the transportation. Councillor Armstrong has made the recommended motion. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.47, utility connection fee.
Okay, thank you. The last RFP for transportation ag is regarding the utility connection fee. So this conversation stemmed from a couple planning priority meetings that we've had. So basically the county had implemented there's a lot of history on the $4,000 connection fee in Rosebud, but basically we brought it forward to all of the communities in 2012 as a way of basically supplementing some of our reserve funds for each community, allowing basically the individual residents of that community to pay towards the levy to fund infrastructure improvements in their community. So we still have that levy to date for each hamlet, Gleason, Rosebud. They all have their own individual ones. So right now we have two different inputs into that. We have a monthly capital levy fund. I think it's around $15.60 a month is what we charge residents for everyone. Every utility account pays into that. That all goes into the funds to support that community. This $4,000 levy was brought in only for vacant lot development as a one-time contribution to, I guess, pay for the infrastructure. Nothing to do with connecting the services, nothing to do with the physical connection to our system. It strictly went into a reserve. So you can see the breakdown here in the next page. Basically, in the last 7 years, we've collected $88,000 on that one-time vacant lot levy, and we're up to $716,000 for the monthly capital, so substantially more. We don't get a whole lot of money from these one-time levies, and from what I've understood over the years, it has hurt the development community as far as supporting. It's just another thing that is kind of a surprise to these community or to the builders as they come forward to have to pay this. So my recommendation is to remove that connection fee, and strictly we're going to look at utility rate bylaw next week at P&P. That's something maybe we can increase that if we want to supplement or have the same level per year. Just knowing that we do still collect levies based on that.
Council's wishes. I'd like to move that county approve, the Wheatland County Council approve the proposed revision of planning policy section 7.8 and master fee schedule, removing the requirement for applicants to pay the utility connection fee prior to the development of a vacant lot.
Council discussion.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what I'm going to tell ratepayers when they ask me how come their utility bills are going up every month to pay into reserve when they just finished paying $4,000 to hook up into that reserve. Because the understanding will be the utility fees will be going up because we took the $4,000 off, and they're getting dinged twice.
There was a calculation once given to me. I can't remember what it was, but it was not very much money per month to make this. Let's see, for Rosebud.
Well, what are we gonna tell if we don't do this, what are we gonna tell the Carsland residents that are buying vacant lots that are getting dinged twice? One for the lot price and then one for the turn on of the bell.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's whichever one you wanna piss off.
That's why you go to cost recovery, then the math doesn't lie. It is what it is. It's utility. It costs, it wears out, you gotta replace it. You're subsidizing it with tax dollars, so.
I'd like to call a vote.
Okay. Is any councillor opposed?
I'll be opposed.
Okay, we will just move to a roll call vote. Reeve Link is in favor. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
In favor.
Councillor Wilson.
In favor.
Councillor Bigger.
In favor.
Councillor Eichert.
In favor.
Councillor Kester.
Opposed.
Councillor Armstrong.
Favor.
Motion is carried. We'll move to correspondence, which starts on page 237. The letter from Village of Rocky Ford regarding WRC, and a letter from Strathmore and District Ag Society, a thank you for the 2020 Community Enhancement Grant funding.
I'll move we accept them as information.
Councillor Armstrong has moved to accept as information. Any discussion?
Yes, I've got some discussion. This letter from Rocky Ford, how are we going to deal with it?
They're not asking for any response. They're just stating a fact.
Yeah, I think
they're stating that they're unhappy with the letter that the county sent them. So, it's been our practice that anytime the county gets a letter, we answer with a letter. Are we going to acknowledge that we shouldn't have sent that letter out the way it was sent out? Or why was that letter sent out? Or are we just going to send them a letter and said, thank you for the letter?
I have
If
already
you read the letter, they're very unhappy about it. Their integrity was called into question, and I don't blame them.
So just so that everybody's aware, I did acknowledge receipt of the letter shortly after receiving it. So that has been done.
I think the basic part of the letter, but the worst part of the email that was sent was there any other discussions for the specific tender approval that took place with proponents or bidders? And every councillor would know that you do not talk to anybody bidding on a project before it's awarded. You don't want to give any proprietary information to anybody. And that little sentence, when you read it on its surface, is, it's calling into question their integrity. And I think we should be a little more careful when we write letters of this sort, especially to one of the municipalities within our area.
I asked the question of staff to research this because actually some information you had said to me, Glenn, that said that this discussion was, there may or may not have been two of the lowest tenders in discussion with them. So I was very concerned. I asked administration to find out. I have no problem with asking questions. I think it's our job. I'm tired of every time I ask a question of certain municipalities, I have to apologize for it. It wasn't to offend. I think somebody's very easily offended. And I will not apologize for asking questions.
And I think it's key, given the structure of the Wheatland Regional Corporation, that all the municipalities involved feel free and open to access information and ask questions. The structure is very unique, and it does expose our municipality to potential liabilities. And I don't think that, I think it's good if our council representatives are kind of mitigating those liabilities by ensuring that procurement procedures and policies are being followed. That was my understanding just from following up on this letter and what had happened. There were some concerns. We confirm that proper procedures are being followed all the time. This morning I asked administration 3 times to ensure that, circulation was done as per the MGA. I'm not questioning administration's integrity or anything when I do that. I'm just ensuring that proper procedures have been followed to mitigate liability that our council could be exposed to.
I understand that those procedures are part of the MGA and you're to ask it at every public hearing. But don't bring my name into suggesting that I said that they were talking to any of the bidders in a inappropriate way. I told Scott when we were talking about this that at the council meeting, Rocky Ford had those bidders logged on, and you know who's logged on because you can tell the phone numbers, and they were logged on listening to the meetings. There was a time Wheatland County opened the tenders in council meetings, and we would have 10, 15, 20 bidders in the audience. This is no different. They were in the audience listening to who won the contract. They were not talking to them. And if you would have asked me if they were talking about it, I would have been a lot more specific. But I mentioned to you that they had logged on to the council meeting. They knew where the bids are getting, where the tenders are awarded. The tender package went out in the Village of Rocky Ford's name. The responses went back to the Village of Rocky Ford, as always has happened. So don't use my name, and I'm a little upset over that.
So through the chair and to this letter, to me, when I look at it, it's they've sent a letter stating their I guess that they're a little upset with some of it, but they are not asking for an apology. They're not asking for anything. They're just stating the point, and that's how it's been handled in the past. And to me, as Ariva said, she's responded to it. So to me, it's just information. So that's how that's why I got the motion on the floor to accept this as information. I don't think we need a motion to start sending letters back and forth apologizing for anything. They're stating a point. I understand it. I accept it. And carry on. I don't have anything to do with the other part of it.
I just wanted council to be aware of what was said because it was not in the package.
Yep.
And what okay, I wanted that to be aware of, and I think was well spelled out what happened now. So I'm okay with it. If they want something more, we can certainly entertain that if the ask comes.
I do think this whole procedure has highlighted some bigger issues with WRC, just in terms of even onboarding for board members. I know I heard from one of the board members that they did not feel that they had a complete understanding of how this process was to take place, and that certain elements of the board governance are maybe not consistent with how the structure. And forgive me, I don't know all of the details of how it works. I have never sat on that board, but just in terms of what the role and relationship of the managing partner to the board is, how governance works, which questions should be being addressed by the board, which motions need to be made by the managing partner. And I think I'm hearing that there is some headway being made in understanding of that process, but I think that has been part of the challenge with this. And then I have heard, just as a representative of Wheatland County, that at times requests for information can be challenging. And I think we all are committed to the success of this corporation. And in order for it to be successful, there needs to be good cooperation and collaboration. And that includes transparency around information. So I did acknowledge to the CAO that we had received Mayor Burke's letter. She expressed appreciation for that acknowledgement. Yeah, I'm at council's will.
I'm happy with what has been done.
So we do have a motion on the floor accepting the correspondence as information. Any further discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. later than I thought. Would council prefer that we move into closed session now, or are we having lunch today or no? Brian, are we breaking for lunch today, or should we just move into closed session?
I believe we're breaking for lunch. I can confirm that.
Just to confirm, lunch is being brought in.
Okay.
Is it here now?
Margaret, do you know if it is available at this point?
I know it's not Diane today, so I know it's not here.
I see General Manager Dito is just checking.
Sorry, it was being picked up at 11:30, so it should be here shortly.
Okay. I'll recess the meeting and we will reconvene. Do we want to say 12:30? Okay, we're recessed until 12:30, and we'll just have anybody who's on the line just call back in at 12:30. It'll just help with the call clarity.
Different number, it's gonna be
Oh, right. Well,
so not everybody phone in, please.
we will need to be in open session to move into closed session. Maybe call briefly back into the regular number at 12:30. We'll move into closed session, and then we'll call into the confidential number. Thank you.
You can, ask them the question you need to ask them, and then you don't have to. All you need to do is ask him if he's in a secure location. If he phones back on the other number, he's in a secure location, then we can go in camera whenever we want. He'll phone back on the other number
We just have to make our resolutions in open session,
afterwards.
but to move into closed session.
But the motion on the floor now is that you're moving to closed session at 12:30.
Okay. There's a reason you have all this experience, and we can take advantage of it. All right, I will move, so prior to recessing our meeting, I will move us into closed session. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Now we will recess until 12:30.
I found a really long
They
gray hair.
screwed everything else up under this COVID thing.
Glenn, are you on this line?
I'm here.
Wonderful. I'm going to move us out of closed session. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. There's a motion arising from the closed session.
Thank you, Scott Clausen here. I'd like to make a motion to direct.
Sorry, just one moment.
Can I like that? Thank you, Scott Clausen here. I'd like to make a motion to direct administration to pursue the implementation of an interim operating agreement with the Lakes of Muirfield Homeowners Association, addressing the operation and maintenance of on-site water infrastructure and management of costs and customer billing for wastewater services with an intended commencement date of July 31st, 2020.
Questions or discussion on the motion?
Structure.
It spoke to water as well. I believe the maintenance of the water system.
Okay.
Oh, it's so do you want to clarify your motion?
Yeah, just to clarify, it is just for the wastewater, because we're already doing the water part of it.
Any other questions, discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. That concludes our agenda today. I will adjourn the meeting.
Goodbye.